thought that Lydia from Million Dollar Secret was one to watch, and I thought she was playing a great game in the last batch of episodes. I really thought she would be in the final, but in the latest batch of episodes, I think she got a bit too comfortable. And I feel like what is happening, not even just with Lydia, with other players as well, namely Sam, is that they're great players, they're intelligent people, they're incredibly perceptive, they pick up on things, they clock people quick. But because there's some degree of self-importance there, they think that they can get away with the things that they're clocking other people for doing because they think they're smart enough to get away with it. And that's their blind spot and that's their downfall. And we saw this with Lydia. It seems like she came in with this character being, the innocent grandma or innocent-ish grandma. She wanted people to underestimate her. And I think she did think people would underestimate her because of her age. Like I said, this game pretty much works on stereotypes. She's probably thinking, I'm this old woman, no one's gonna suspect me for being this sneaky bitch. And in the first batch of episodes, she laid pretty low, meddling a little bit, but doing it in the background. But then in this latest batch of episodes, we see her slowly but surely coming into the forefront with the strategy, the gameplay, and the cunningness and the calculations, and people were clocking her. Her first big move was basically trying to start a coup against Sydney. She wants Sydney out. She thinks that Sydney is a good or / dangerous player. I think Sydney is a very good player. But I think this hyperfixation on Sydney was her downfall. And it was, to be honest. In one way or another, it was her downfall. But personally, for me, I found Lydia's fixation on Sydney weird. And I also found her fixation on other people weird as well. Namely Sydney and Jamie. I mean, it's very clear that she did not like both of them girls. Like, I get the whole thing with Sydney being a good, dangerous player and people wanting her out. But I don't actually think she was the most dangerous player. Maybe outwardly because other people were smart to make a sneaky game. But was she really that dangerous? I don't think so. I think Lydia was a more dangerous player than Sydney. I think Sam is. I think Chris is. I think even Corey is. Corey is flying under the radar. He's a very good player. Even Cara. People, she's flying under the radar, but she has quiet influence. So I feel like Lydia's fixation on Sydney, we have to get Sydney out, for me, was weird. But I mean, if she can get on a bandwagon for, to get, self-preservation, I get that. But for me, the fixation on Sydney was weird. And it was given jealous. Then we get on to her beef with Jamie, which again, I don't think was good for her gameplay, getting involved in personal beef. She had an issue with the whole Jamie and Laurie petty argument at the round table. Do I think Jamie did too much? Yes. But do I think it was enough for Lydia to be going around the house talking about she wants her ass up here? No, I don't think it was. Jamie's been getting a lot of backlash, but personally, I think that the backlash, I can understand it, but I do think that I do think the concentration is just focusing on Jamie when Jamie wasn't the only one coming for Lauren. Sydney came for her. Chris came for her just as hard as Jamie, in my opinion. And quite frankly, everybody's chatting shit about everybody in that house, including Lydia. So for Lydia to just fixate on Jamie, even going to Chris to be like, I don't like Jamie, she was so cruel to Lauren, and ignoring the fact that Chris was basically just as mean as Jamie. To me, I found very interesting that all the heat is just on Jamie and nobody else. And I find it interesting, the public reaction as well. Some people, I would say a good amount, are saying everybody, including Sydney and Chris. But I feel like most people are just focusing on Jamie, and I find that very interesting. Why it's only Jamie for some people. But like I said, Jamie did too much. Yes, it was mean, it was petty, but it didn't come out of nowhere. Lauren was also chatting shit. Lauren was rubbing people the wrong way. And I just feel like after Lauren left, it should have been a new day for everybody. I don't know why Lydia was hanging on for it. Or at the least, go talk to Jamie and talk about I didn't like, how you spoke to Lauren at the table. Now going around to just be like, I don't like that bitch, I found that very weird. Also, this whole thing about chatting shit about people, that could come back to bite you. people can use that against you, whether it's directly or using you as a scapegoat to, throw the direction in another way, to plant on somebody else. So talking shit about people, as a smart person in the gameplay, she shouldn't have been doing that. So that's when I was like, okay, she's kind of lost her composure a little bit. Back to my original point, she was plotting against Sydney, starting a coup with Sydney, but when she was going around to spread the message about let's get Sydney out, she's going around basically telling everybody, oh, it didn't come from me. I'm not going to tell you where it came from, but it didn't come from me. And everybody knows that it came from Lydia. So now people are clocking on that Lydia is a smart bitch. She's creating coups against people. She's a strong player. Then we have the second situation with the second roundtable, and now there's quite a few names being thrown out, including Lydia. And I believe the people on the chopping block were Sam, Lydia, and Sydney. But on this round, Sam had completed the agenda, and she had won a kill shot. So it didn't really matter who voted for who. Sam had a kill shot, and she was going to kill off whoever she wanted. But Sam was using this round table to basically suss out who she's going to kill. And I think her strategy was she wanted to pin it on Sydney. And Sydney, she has some influence. So I guess the people back in Sydney were voting for Lydia. But then there was also suspicion on Sam as well. I think that was kind of kept quiet a little bit. But there was suspicion on Sam as well. So that's where the three-way vote basically came from. And it seems like there was, quite a bit of back and forth between Sydney and Lydia. And that's what sealed Lydia's fate, because Sam decided she was going to use Lydia's problem with Sydney against her and kill her off and try and pin it on Sydney. And also take the heat off of her misdirection. And this is why you've got to be careful about who you chat shit about, because it can come back to bite you in this game, because it's about votes, but it's also a popularity contest. I just think it's best to be civil with everyone, because people could use your problems with the players against you. And I guess she didn't really think about that. I think Lydia thought she was untouchable. And again, we're seeing that theme with certain players thinking they're untouchable and realising too late that they're not. And Lydia's time was up, and like I said, unfortunately, I'm not surprised. She was talking too much, she was plotting too much in public, and then on top of that, she was also telling people's business. Chris told Lydia that he didn't trust Sam, and then she goes back to Sam and tells her, well, Chris told me this. There was a bit of snitching, a bit of snakery going on, and I was like, that's definitely going to come back to you, Lydia. Like I said, Sam voted her off because she had a problem with Sydney. But I also think Lydia was a very, very strong player, and I think that had an impact on Sam's decision as well. Taking out Sydney might lead back to her immediately, but taking out Lydia, possibly not. And again, Lydia's a very good player. She's just as calculated as Sam, and this was the perfect opportunity to get her out. So that was the end for Lydia. When she leaves, she has nice things to say about everyone except for Jamie. Even Sydney and Chris, she kept it civil, Chris, you're a good player. Sydney, you're a dangerous player. So a little bit of spice on Sydney, but Jamie, she was just basically like, you're shallow and pretentious, and basically, I don't even know how you're a life coach with how you spoke to Laura. And personally, I think that was a bit weird from Lydia. Like I said, I can understand why people might feel a type of way because of what Jamie did, but I just feel like the way that you went around the table to say basically something nice about everybody except for Jamie, I think you're just as bad as what you're claiming Jamie is. And again, just the slack for Jamie, nothing for Chris. Nothing for Chris. She had a little bit of heat for Sydney, but nothing for Chris. That's strange. And also, shallow and pretentious. Jamie is a lot. But I personally didn't get shallow and pretentious. So for me, I don't know. I just feel like those words coming for Jamie don't make sense to me, and I find them very interesting. And I feel like lots of people say that when they mean something else. But let me know your thoughts on Lydia's downfall.